Hi, this is Ofori, the digital reader, and I'm trying a new segment that I'm basically calling Story Time with the Digital Reader. These are just anecdotes and stories that don't specifically have to do with information about ebooks or ebook sites or book reviews. They're really just anecdotes from my life being a digital reader for almost 20 years. For me, I pretty much became a digital reader in around 2005, 2006 ish. And since then, I've been reading books digitally. So just thought, I felt like talking about some of the stuff that I've bumped into in my time. And this story is about the longest audiobook that I ever read. And this goes back to about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, I was taking a trip to North Carolina with some family and friends, and I wanted an audiobook that I could play on the way down. But when I'm driving, one thing I hate to do is I hate to switch audiobooks. And it was about an 8 hour drive. And the reason I hate to switch audiobooks is usually when I finish an audiobook, I never really am 100% certain what I'm going to be reading next. So I like to kind of look at the books that I have and kind of see what my mood is and pick one book from that. But it's kind of hard to do that when you're going 60 or 70 miles an hour down a highway. So I didn't really want to switch audiobooks mid drive. So I started looking for audiobooks with kind of a thought in mind that I would want the audiobook to be long enough that I could do an 8 hour drive and I wouldn't run out of the audiobook so I could listen to it all in one drive. And in looking through it, I actually bumped into a book, and this book is called The Crusades, The Authoritative History of the War for the Holy Land by Thomas Ashbridge, and it is narrated by Derek Perkins. Now, growing up, I was not a history person, could have cared less about history. And most of my life, I wasn't really big into history. But then I bumped into a podcast called The History of Rome by Mike Duncan. And I just love that podcast. And so I thought maybe I have airs of being a person who might be into history. And this was a nice, long book about history. So I figured I'd give it a try. So I buy the book and I get in the car with my friends and my family, and we're, getting ready to go. And I would probably say we start driving, I turn the book on, and maybe 10 minutes into the drive, they start mutinying. They're like, oh no, we are not listening to this dry history book for another 7 hours. If you don't turn this off, we're going to grab the wheel and drive you off the road. So basically, after some discussion and debate, it ended up that for the 8 hour drive, we ended up listening to 80s pop music. So I only listened to 10 minutes of the book 10 years ago, and I never got to finishing. So lately, I've been kind of give myself a goal that I want to read an audiobook a month. It's just something I want to do. I enjoy audiobooks, and I have a large collection of audiobooks that I just never really got to. So I did finally get around to finishing The Crusaders, and 10 years later, I have to agree. It's not a bad book, but it is dry, chalk dry history. And it was an incredible slog to get through. It felt like it was 100 hours instead of just 20 something hours. So I didn't mention how long this book was, but this was a single book. This Crusades book was a single book, and it was 25 hours and 30 minutes. I have something embarrassing to say, and trust me, this isn't bait and switch. In finishing up this video, I looked over all my audiobooks by length, and I realized this is not the longest audiobook I have ever listened to. The longest audiobook I ever listened to was Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clark, and that sucker was over 32 hours. I never thought about it because it was such an amazing book that 32 hours flew by. And that brings an important point to listening to audiobooks, that the good ones fly by and the dry ones drag on a bit. So, after going through my whole list, just for full disclosure, here are the top 5 audiobooks that I've listened to by length, starting with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, The Crusades, The Authoritative History of the War for the Holy Land, Jade War by Fonda Lee, and The Revenge of the Dwarves by Marcus Heitz. At least The Crusades does make it into the top 5. And I'm almost embarrassed that I came up with this whole story and then look back and realize that it's almost 10 hours longer. Well, almost 7 hours longer than The Crusades. But anyway, this is me giving you full disclosure. Sorry about that. So if you're going on a long drive, if you're going on vacation, heck, if you're in a cave or on a desert island, these 5 books will last you to your destination and back from your destination without switching to another audiobook or hunting and pecking while you're driving. So this is Story Time with the Digital Reader, and keep reading and listening.